Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Brother Doug with my sister Sadie, our brother Moses, and our sister River, and we're doing a study today called Are Human Beings Lesser Mighty Ones? And so this is a study that I wanted to kind of debunk what Mormonism teaches on the subject, what certain sects of mainstream Christianity, like a sect that most Christians wouldn't even consider part of their religion, but anyway, Jehovah Witnesses teach this, that human beings are lowercase gods and all that. And so I want to start this study off. I'm going to start the study off by going into the Torah using the Aramaic Targums, the 3 Aramaic Targums of the Torah. Since the Jerusalem one is extremely fragmented and does not have this verse there, I'm going to be mainly using the 2 other Targums, the Targum of Jonathan and the Targum of Onkelos, which most scholars would say that the Targum of Onkelos is the most accurate word-for-word Targum, word-for-word literal translation. So first I'm going to go to that. Get out of here, Oxford Dictionary. I don't need you. Get out of here. All right, here we go. Okay, so just to start this off here, this is one of the verses that people like to, that would believe that, would like to point to. So I'm going to show you here. It says in Exodus 7:1, it says, "But Yahuwah said to Moses, see, I have appointed you a master, rabbi, to Pharaoh." He's not a deity to Pharaoh. He's a rabbi, a master, a ruler with Pharaoh. "And Aaron shall be your interpreter." Okay, so major difference here in the Targum. Makes it a lot more clear to understand what Yahuwah actually made him. In our modern Old Testaments, because we have the substitution of God everywhere for Elohim, Eloah, Elohai, and it's always translated in the singular God, and and that's the biggest problem. So if we look at Exodus chapter 7, verse 1, it says, and this is a different Targum, this is Targum of Jonathan, which is kind of more of like a historical paraphrase, has added information into the text. It says, Exodus 7:1, "But Yahuwah said to Moshe, wherefore are you fearful? Why are you afraid? Behold, I have set you a terror to Pharaoh," meaning I've set you as someone Pharaoh's going to be fearful of. "As if," keyword here, "if you were his mighty one, his Elohim. And Aaron your brother shall be your prophet." So both of them are saying it's more of a ruler, magistrate, judge, king type of position that he's made Moses as. It's not that he's made Moses a deity. I want to make that clear. That's what the Targums are showing here. So, and if we really want to, we can also go to Exodus 4:16 is another one where people will point to and say, well, what about this verse? Okay, so let's go to Exodus 4:16 in the Targum of Jonathan. It says, "And he shall speak for you with," for some reason, it's very slow today, "with the people, and to be an interpreter, and you to him, the principal, is seeking instruction from before Yahuwah." So as you see, here's a huge difference from the Masoretic. Okay, so it makes it a lot more literal, a lot more verbatim. Even in this paraphrase, it makes it a lot more easier to understand. It says, so basically, he's a principal to Pharaoh, a ruler, a magistrate, a king to Pharaoh. Pharaoh's under him. He's under his authority, if that makes any sense. And if you actually look at the word Elohim, which we should do right now, I want to look at the word Elohim from the eSword here just to prove the point that Elohim doesn't always refer to a deity or a quote-unquote God. Okay, it can sometimes refer to a ruler, a judge, so on, so forth. So we're going to, and we'll even go to Genesis 1:1 just for example. The same word that's used in Genesis 1:1. It's not always referring to the creator. In this context, yeah, it's referring to Yahuwah and Yahusha, the co-creator. So, but it can refer to humans, judges, angels, okay? It's a very general title, very general. Angels, exceedingly, divine ones, judges, mighty, magistrates, okay? Which, by the way, if you look at the Septuagint in Exodus 22:28 in the Torah, where it talks about do not revile, in your English Bibles, it would say, do not revile the mighty ones of your people, the Elohim of your people. In the Apostolic Bible Polyglot, which is a modern English translation of a Septuagint, says, here it says, you shall not speak evil of magistrates. So obviously magistrates in our modern English would be kings, rulers. So probably kings in this context. You shall not speak evil of kings and rulers of your people. You shall not speak wickedly. So it's kind of worded differently from the Greek. It's kind of like backwards. So if we were to read it in English, it would be, you shall not speak wickedly of the rulers of your people. You shall not speak evil of magistrates. That's what it's saying. So again, this word magistrates is theos. Same word that's being used for the Father in the New Testament. So it has to do with the context. You have to look at the words theos and Elohim with the proper context. It's the only way to understand when it's talking about the Father as a title for the Father sometimes, and sometimes it's used as a title just for human beings and for judges even and rulers. So it's important to understand that. So we just did Exodus 7:1. Shalom, Sister Alyssa. I see you just joined us. So Exodus 7:1 says in the Targums, says, I will set you as a terror to Pharaoh. So he's like someone that the Pharaoh should fear, a king over him, a magistrate over him. Okay, so it doesn't mean he's a literal God, which unfortunately some people believe, like I said before, some people have been deceived into believing this apotheosis idea of man becoming gods. Okay, so the Hebrew word, like I just said, the Hebrew word Elohim is a general title which can refer to judges, kings, not just deities. The people with interpreting, the problem with interpreting that Yahuwah made Moses into a deity would completely contradict why he told Adam and Eve not to eat of the forbidden fruit. And we're going to go to that next here, Genesis 3:5 here. So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, which in the Septuagint, they actually translate theos with a lowercase g, O-D-S, which I find interesting. So they actually make a distinction here. See here, it says, in the Bren's English Septuagint, it says here, you and the serpent said to the woman, you shall not surely die. For Elohim knows whenever day that you should eat of it, your eyes would be opened and you would be as mighty ones, knowing good and evil. So notice here how it's plural. It's got the S at the end and it's lowercase. That is usually, that's referring to angels or false gods, like the gods of the heathen. Okay, and usually when they have the lowercase gods, usually that's talking about the idols of the nations, which I find kind of funny because you'll see here in the Targums, it's a lot more literal who the lowercase gods Satan is talking about, that they would be like the lowercase gods. So we're going to go into the Targums here, the Aramaic Targums of Genesis 3. And okay, so we're going to go to Genesis 3. And okay, so it says here in Genesis 3, 5-6. Here we go. It says, for it is manifest, and this is the Targum of Jonathan here, for it is manifest before Yahuwah that in that day you eat of it, you will be as the great angels. who are wise to know between good and evil. So like I said before, if he's literally making Moses a lesser god in Exodus 7 verse 1, it would completely contradict why Adam and Eve are punished from doing this, because they're literally taking the forbidden fruit of being like the angels, which they're not supposed to do. They're not supposed to be like the divine messengers. They're not supposed to be like that. That's what Satan actually meant by you will be as lowercase gods. He's referring to the angels. So as you see there, mighty ones, theos, Elohim doesn't always refer to the Father. Okay, it's in that context is referring to his messengers. Okay, so just wanted to show that, and I think we'll just for added witnesses, we're going to go to the Targum of Onkelos here, where it pretty much roughly says the same thing. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so as you can see here, Genesis 3. And the woman saw that the tree was good to eat, and it was salutary to the eyes, and the tree desirable to contemplate. And she took of its fruit and ate, and she gave to her husband, and he ate. Oh, my bad. I'm reading the wrong verse here. My bad. It's the prior verse, verse 4 here. And the serpent said to the woman, not to die will you die. So here we go, the lie of reincarnation here. Here we go. For it is manifest before Yahuwah that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be open. You will be cherubim, cherubs, as the great ones, knowing good and evil. And if you're still speculatory that Elohim means angels, I can show you a couple chapters later in Genesis 6, the Genesis 6 experiment, where they use the same verbiage for angels, the great ones. Okay, it says here, Genesis 6:4 in the was this the Targum Onkelos? Giants were in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of the mighty had gone into the daughters of men and were born from the giants who were from old, the men of name. So again, the great ones, the sons of the great, always referred in the Old Testament to angels, according to the Targum. They were not referring to humans. So, and that's another thing we're going to dive into here is we're going to see how in other places, like the Aramaic version of the book of Psalms here, I'm going to show you how literally the phrase Elohim is translated as angels. Okay, so, and this is a big thing too, because this is where the Mormons, Kenneth Copeland, all of them want to claim this, that we're the quote-unquote lesser gods of Psalms 82, and I'm going to show you the fallacy to that here. In the Aramaic Peshitta of Psalms, it's part of a translation called the Original Aramaic New Testament with Psalms and Proverbs, which you can find on BibleHub.com, BibleSupport.com for eSword. Says here in Psalms chapter 82, verse 1, Elohim stands in the assembly of the humans? No, angels. And among the angels, he will judge. Okay? And another thing I would like to ask people that think this is humans here, I would like to ask you, because I have not found it yet, where human beings are literally given the title of sons of Elohim in the Old Testament. I would really like to see that. Because if you look at Psalms 82 verse 6, it says, I have said, you are Elohim, plural here, so mighty ones. You are the children of the highest, meaning you are the children of the Most High. The only time you see sons of the Most High, sons of Elohim in Genesis all the way to Malachi, the majority of the time, is angels. the angels of Elohim came into the daughters of men. In the Masoretic text, it says the sons of Elohim, Genesis 6. So the majority of the time in the Old Testament, it's referring to heavenly messengers. It's not referring to humans. And to me, this is usually the one verse in this chapter, in my opinion, that exposes that this could be referring to humans. Psalms 82, verse 7. Therefore you will die like the children of men. Like and as are similes. Similes are used to compare a different kind to another kind. Okay, so if they're the sons of men, if these people that Yahuwah is rebuking are mankind in general, certain judges like the Israelites that were, supposed to keep his laws and spread the good news to the nations, if that's the case, that these are supposed to be the righteous children of Yahuwah, why is he saying you will die like the children of mankind? If they're children of mankind, if they're children of Adam. That would be my question I would pose to people that want to interpret Psalms 82 as talking about humans instead of angels. Okay? So again, and to pose another witness for my argument of why I believe Psalms 82 is talking about angels and not humans, in the Septuagint, it says here in Deuteronomy 32:8, says, when the Most High divided the nations, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set boundaries of the nations according to the number of the angels of Elohim. So my question would be, okay, so think about this for a second. This is my theory. Deuteronomy 32:8 is the foreshadowing of Psalms 82. I believe it's the same exact context. The only difference is Psalms 82 is after the fact that he put these principalities, one principality on each nation, the 70 languages, 70 countries that came from the Tower of Babel, since they wanted to worship Nimrod instead of the Father, he gave them into the principalities, the fallen angels. The fallen angels were actually given resignation over each nation. And what I believe Psalms 82, what's happening there after Deuteronomy 32:8 is the fact that they did not rightly rule for the poor. They did not care for the needy and the widow. Even though they're fallen from their original nature, Yahuwah they still got to answer to Yahuwah. That doesn't change. And I think this lie that Satan is in control of all the demons and the fallen angels that Christianity likes to preach, there's nowhere in Scripture that says that. Satan still has to answer to Yahuwah. All of his angels got to answer to Yahuwah. So it's just a theory I'm putting out there. To me, it makes a lot more sense. Rather than interpreting Psalms 82 as it's humans, yet if you go to, and I really don't want to go off on a tangent onto the whole Sethite theory and why the Sethite theory is wrong, because we've done studies about that before, why the Sethite theory holds no water for Genesis 6. But just to kind of show you what I mean by the majority of the time, sons of Elohim are identified as angels. Okay, and the Hebraic roots Bible actually say this here. Okay. Cherubs. What's a cherub? It's a class of angel. Here are called the sons of Elohim. Also in Job 38:7, Genesis 6:2. It is not known why Satan would be allowed to be with them. Well, actually it is, depending on when you believe he fell from heaven, but that's a whole nother topic. Because if you think about it, if Satan is still allowed to be up there in heaven, then it makes sense why he's appearing with the angels of Elohim. He hasn't been cast down to the earth yet. Even though he fell and he's a fallen angel, he's still allowed access to Yahuwah to appear before Yahuwah and accuse us. So if you think about it, it makes sense. But anyway, I don't want to go too much on a tangent. So anyway, but I do like the Hebraic Roots Bible give you a note here that says that universally this phrase, B'nai Elohim, is referring to angels, not humans. Okay, so it says, and it came to pass on a day, behold, the angels of Elohim, Septuagint has here, came to stand before Yahuwah, and the devil came with them. So I'm tying that into the Psalms 82, where it says, you are children of the Most High. So to me, there's no room, in my opinion, there's no room for interpretation with that one. It was Psalms 82. It can't be humans, because Yahuwah in verse 7 of Psalms 82, like we've seen before, it says, you will die like the children of men. He's likening them to a different kind of creation. He's saying, you will die as humans do, you know? So anyway, that's just what I wanted to explain about that, why it's important to understand that, because then you kind of see a common thread of there's a distinction between angels and humans, and believing that Masha literally became a angel would contradict Genesis 3, chapter 3, verse 5, and he became a lesser deity would contradict, Yahuwah telling them not to eat of the forbidden fruit. But anyway, so now we're going to go to Exodus chapter 4, verse 16. We're going to look at different versions of this verse here. This seems to be the last one. I don't know if we read this before, but I want to dive a little deeper into this verse here and see if there's any huge differences. And it says in the Septuagint here of Exodus 4:16, and he shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be for him in the things pertaining to Elohim. Notice how it says in the things pertaining to Elohim. It doesn't say that he's literally Elohim. So I wanna make a distinction with that. According to my brother Darrenell, he had a document he had earlier that he was showing me earlier this morning about this topic, and that document cited Romans chapter 15, verse 17. It says here, therefore I have something to boast of in Messiah Yahushua in the things pertaining to Elohim. So what it's actually saying is he is boasting in us the things that pertain to the Father. That's all pertaining to Elohim means we belong to him. We pertain to him. We are his possession. Yasharel, Israel is his possession. True Israel, those that believe in Yahushua and keep the commandments. We pertain to the Father by association because we are of the Father. We are his children, if that makes any sense. Okay. So, it's very important we understand this concept that we ourselves are not deities. We are not lesser deities. The nations worshipped angels as lesser deities. Yahuwah gave the angels to the nations for lesser deities. I know it's hard to comprehend why he would do that. He would actually distribute when those nations rebelled in Deuteronomy 32:8, which we just talked about before. You go to another part in Deuteronomy 4:19. Yahuwah says, don't serve them. Don't serve these lesser deities, these lesser gods's. Okay? I've given them to the nations, but not to you. I've given them to the Gentiles, but not to you. We have to accept this, that there's a distinction. There's a higher standard for us versus the world. The world can do whatever they want. Yahuwah doesn't care. If they're not of his people, they're not his children, they're illegitimate, he could care less. So, and I'll show you right here. It says, Deuteronomy chapter 14 verse here. Let's see here. It starts off at verse 15. Idolatry forbidden. The E-sword has a little header here. Idolatry forbidden. And take good heed, meaning guard your hearts, okay? If for you saw no image in the day which Yahuwah spoke to you in Horeb in the mountain of the midst of fire. This is why we're not supposed to have images that are supposed to liken Yahushua. Any Christians watching that might have Caesar Borgia pictures, get rid of them. Get rid of those images. Don't be turning the incorruptible Elohim into a corruptible image. Okay? Lest you transgress and make to yourselves a carved image, any kind of figure the likeness of male or female, the likeness of any beast of those that are on the earth, and the likeness of any winged bird which flies under the heaven, the likeness of any reptile which creeps on the earth, the likeness of any fish which are in the waters underneath, unless, here's the part I wanted to get to here, lest looked up to the sky, and having seen the sun, moon, and the stars, and remember, the original text never had commas, they never had punctuation marks, okay? And the stars and all the heavenly bodies, who are the heavenly bodies, the angels, okay? You should go astray and worship them and serve them, which Yahuwah your Elohim has distributed to all the nations under heaven, meaning he has given those for the Gentiles to worship, but not you. But Elohim, and I think this actually should be Yahuwah here, according to the Masoretic. This is where the Codex Vaticanus screws that up. But Yahuwah has taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance. So we are Yahuwah's inheritance. We don't worship the lesser gods. The nations worship the lesser gods. So if we are to believe that we can become gods ourselves, that defeats the whole purpose of Yahuwah's commandments, if you see what I'm saying. Okay? The whole purpose of his commandments is we as his people, through Yahushua Messiah, who died for us and resurrected, graft us into his original people who were to serve him and him alone, and not lowercase gods's that the nations serve, if that makes any sense. So more of a reason why we need to reject this heresy that humans are lesser gods. And I really do believe it's a heresy. So thank you for joining us today. I just want to stop myself here. I'm going to give time right now for my brothers and sisters if they want to include anything, or if they want to, just say anything that they would like to add. Go ahead. Feel free to unmute yourselves. So, I don't know, Sister Sadie, if you want to add something.
Well, no, I was reading in the book of Enoch, and in Enoch it calls out the angels and where they're at and what they're protecting and who they're protecting. So I was kind of like looking into that little, it's funny how you would be talking about the Malach, which is angels, and which are the stars that people call, right? And so like last night I was, since I've been out here, I've been looking up at the stars because they're just so big and bright, And I just said, Abba Yahuwah, gosh, you know every single one of them by name. And they're all created by you. And they watch, I kind of think like they watch us, and they're seeing us here on earth. So I was just digging out some of the names. I don't have my notes open on it, but how they have their order. Abba is not an Abba that does not have order on the stars or the Malaks. As people know them, because I think stars are from NASA, right? And so I think if anybody's really interested in looking, go look in the book of Enoch and just go look at it, because they're called, there's names are there and what they do and their duties and how they protect us as well, because they're put in order in places and positions of this earth.
Yeah, that's why they were called watchers. That specific class of angels were supposed to watch over mankind. In the days of Jared, they decided, no, we would rather have our children in our own image, and and they lusted after these women, these mortal women, and you'll see that in every other culture. Every other culture talks about it. Cultures that don't even believe in the Bible talk about these quote-unquote lowercase gods came down from heaven, Mount Olympus, Greek mythology is the same thing. They came down and they fell in love with mortal women, and they had these demigods, these hybrid giants, so all that. So some of the angels, they transgressed their courses. And Enoch talks about that too. The fallen angels, they transgressed their allotted courses in the sky. in our atmosphere. They're not millions and millions of miles away. They're literally in the sky. That's why you can see them at night. They're literally right there. In probably, I would say, the first heaven, the firmament. They're like literally right there. So that's why you see them in the sky. And then you know, you got the second heaven is the water above the waters. That's why you ever notice when it's a clear sky, it's always blue year round. That's the waters. So yeah, but Jude talks about, if you look at the book of Jude, it talks about wandering stars, fallen angels. So yeah, we know for a fact scripture, if you take scripture for what it literally says, stars, heavenly bodies, as the Septuagint translates in Deuteronomy 4:19, is talking about angels. It's just titles for angels. There you got the army of heaven, the host of heaven, angels.
And they watch over us. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, we're supposed to have guardian.
We have our own, correct?
Yeah, I think Paul talks about it. He says Yahuwah makes some ministering spirits and, you know, guardian angels. So yeah, they're supposed to watch over us, but some of them fight. You got class of angels like Michael. Michael's like an archangel. He fights, and he's one of the main guys that, you know, basically was used to kick Satan out of heaven. And so, you know, he and Gabriel are like the two main archangels we have in our canon. But then you have Uriel in the book of Enoch. He's one of the bigger guys that you'll see in the extra biblical text. But yeah, so the angels, from what, if you don't get anything else today, just remember, viewers and listeners, we are not little gods. We are not lowercase gods. That's the main point of this study I wanted to bring out. We are not lesser deities. We are not. Humans are humans. We're mortal. We're fallible. We're fallen nature. And, you know, I don't even think, this is just my opinion. I can't prove it. But in the beginning, Adam and Kua would have never been considered lesser gods in Yahuwah's eyes. Even though they were made in his image, they still are under him. They were not equal to him. They still were never considered like divine, celestial, you know, beings and all that. So, but in scripture it does say that the lesser gods, aka the fallen angels, that's what it seems like that's what the nations are worshiping, and Yahuwah gave them to them. So we got to make a distinction between Yahuwah's people and the world, because the world, Yahuwah gives them into a reprobate mind. He's like, you know what? You don't want me? Go ahead, serve the fallen angels, serve the lesser gods. You know, go ahead. So, and that's, I wanted to make a distinction today with this study. So I pray today that you've seen this study, it will make some sense to you, and it will expose that false notion of saying, you know, we're all gods. We're sons of the Most High, when in actuality, that chapter, as you've seen today, especially from the Aramaic Peshitta in English, that the Aramaic version of Psalms shows you straight up, it's talking about angels. So that, I just wanted to show that, because that's usually where this doctrine comes from, is taking Psalms 82 and inserting a New Testament interpretation of B'nai Elohim, when the majority of the Tanakh equates it to angels, that phrase. Like I showed today with Job 1:6, Genesis 6, sons of Elohim came before him with Satan. So again, I just wanted to show that, because I feel like this was a heresy that was really gaining weight, and people starting to believe that apotheosis is that there's nothing wrong with considering yourself a god and stuff like this. So I wanted to make a study to debunk that. So thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your Shabbat, everyone. Shalom.
Shalom, Shabbat.